Hello everyone, my name is Eklavya Sarkar and today I'll be presenting to you my ICASSP accepted paper entitled Comparing Self-Supervised Learning Models Pre-trained on Human Speech and Animal Vocalizations for Bioacoustics Processing. This work was done at Idiap Research Institute and was funded by NCCR Evolving Language. Computational bioacoustics is the study of animal sounds and animal communication. It plays a key role in ecological and evolutionary research and provides insights into animal communication, biodiversity, and the evolutionary origins of language. From a machine learning point of view, there are a number of tasks that one can conduct, such as call detection, call classification, caller identity identification, and other possible tasks such as species recognition. There are a number of challenges, such as the data is often very scarce, it's noisy, it's difficult to collect, and expensive to annotate. Despite this, there has been progress in recent years. Specifically, machine learning has addressed some challenges thanks to the transferability of self-supervised learned representations. So pre-trained audio foundation models have shown impressive transferability to bioacoustic signals, significantly advancing the field. Notably, self-supervised learning models pre-trained on human speech, such as WaveLM, Hubert, Wave2Vec, and so on, have shown remarkable success in bioacoustics classification tasks. The main reason for this is these self-supervised models. They leverage large amount of unlabeled data, which is prevalent in bioacoustics, by creating a pre-training pretext task, which is simply based on the intrinsic structure of the audio data and solving set pretext tasks designed to learn salient representations. Given that these pre-training tasks are domain agnostic, these pre-training tasks are not specific to just audio domain or bioacoustics domain or some other domain. They're domain agnostic. These SSL models have been very effective in transferring from speech to bioacoustics without even the need for any domain fine tuning. So SSLs essentially to just serve as powerful general purpose feature extractor for a wide range of downstream tasks. So based on this, in this paper, we investigate two central research questions, one on pre-training domain and one on fine-tuning on a specific domain. To explain a bit more in depth, the first question is based on the following. We know that while SSL models pre-trained on speech have shown a strong transferability to bioacoustics tasks, recent works have also explored directly fine-tuning on bioacoustics data. The motivation behind pre-training directly on this data is that these models simply may just capture better species-specific vocal patterns and other properties that are unique to animal sounds that we do not hear in human speech. However, given that self-supervised learning pre-training is designed to learn domain-agnostic features in general, it's not clear whether pre-training on bioacoustics provides any significant benefits over SSL's pre-trained on speech. So in this work, we systematically compare SSL models pre-trained on speech against those pre-trained on animal calls, and we evaluate their performance on a variety of bioacoustics tasks and datasets. For a second research question, we know that SSL representations have shown strong performance on bioacoustics tasks without any fine-tuning. This indicates that their extracted latent vectors can capture acoustically rich information and it's capable of distinguishing animal calls and identities. However, fine-tuning a model in a supervised framework often forces the model to learn more novel and specialized patterns, such as phonetic distinctions and learning temporal structures, which typically leads to performance gains. And since we know that both human speech and animal calls both encode structured vocal and linguistic information for communication, we hypothesize that SSL models fine-tuned on ASR may provide an additional inductive bias, which can potentially enhance the model's ability to recognize complex features in bioacoustics data. Therefore, we explore whether fine-tuning pre-trained models on ASR can improve the model's capacity to process animal calls by capturing subtle spectrotemporal characteristics which may otherwise remain underrepresented represented in general SSL pre-training. And we go over these few chapters in the next steps. For experimental setup, specifically the data sets, we work with 3 different data sets shown below. We work with the Watkins dataset, which is a known dataset in bioacoustics, which contains marine animal recordings such as seals, dolphins, and whales. We chose it because it contains multiple species, 32 to be specific. It's high acoustic variety and it's high variance in length. We can see it's the dataset with highest variance. We select the marmoset dataset IMV because marmosets have a very complex social system, and when one species has a complex social system, they are often able to encode critical information in their calls, such as their identity, such as their group affiliation, their population, and so on. This data set has around 73,000 samples, so it's a big data set, but the vocalization length is pretty short, averaging at only 127 milliseconds. And finally, we have a dog data set, which is new, which contains various types of barks. It has 14 different bark call types specifically. In terms of our feature representation, we look at the following models. We take 4 neural representations, one which is pre-trained on animal vocalization called AV's bio. Specifically, it was pre-trained on the animal set of the audio set data set. For the models pre-trained on human speech, we look at Hubert. So Hubert and AVs have the same exact model architecture, just the pre-training domain is different. So Hubert is pre-trained on the 960 set of Libri speech, whereas AVs is pre-trained on the animal sounds of audio set. We also look at Wave2Vec and WaveLM. Then we look at some models pre-trained and fine-tuned on human speech. So the Wave2Vec and WaveLM have fine-tuned versions shown below. And finally, we also look at a fusion feature vector to compare to other features. And in this case, each vocalization segment, we just compute the mean across the posterior probabilities of all other features and then take its Rmax to determine its class. And then we train a simple classifier on these extracted feature representations to classify them in their classes and see which one worked the best. So for a classifier, we use a simple 4-layer MLP, which consists of 3 linear layers and some layer normalization and ReLU activation function, and then a final linear layer. We train it over 30 epochs using cross entropy, and we use unweighted average recall as our metric for evaluation, since a number of these data sets are quite imbalanced in their class distribution. So our classification pipeline looks like this. We take a raw audio signal, we send it through a selected SSL model, we get variable length embeddings of dimension D and n number of such embeddings, and then we compute some statistics over the temporal axis, namely the mean and the STD, and we concatenate them together to get a fixed length vector representation of size 2D. So for each audio signal, we get a functional vector, and then we train a classifier on top of this, an MLP, and get our results. So these are the following results. For the pre-training domain analysis, we can see a layer-wise performance of AVs against Hubert, and we see in the first data set that generally speaking, Hubert marginally outperforms AVs, especially in the initial and final layers. Both models show that the initial layers are quite important. So this trend that the initial layers work very well and later layers less well is not limited to speech models, but also extends to model pre-trained on animal vocalizations such as AVs. We see in the Watkins data set that the AV's initial layers are not as salient as later ones, whereas Hubert's middle layers are conversely the least useful. And for Abzaliev, we see that AVs is overall better, and the initial layers and later layers contribute quite comparably. Hubert doesn't seem to scale as well as AVs, and it follows the same downward trend as for IMV. But overall, the results indicate that pre-training on bioacoustics data can provide marginal improvements in some data sets and contexts. For our second analysis, the fine-tuning analysis, we can see here the results of Wave2Vec and WaveLM, the base version in blue compared to the fine-tuned versions of the same model. So fine-tuning here, we can see it gives mixed results across models and data sets. So the fine-tuned models do not consistently outperform their base counterparts, especially in Wave2Vec 960 hours on the left side in green, with the performance gains being marginal at best. We see that fine-tuning on speech data, such as the 960 Wave2Vec, sometimes leads to a decline in performance in later layers, as seen on IMV and Abzaliev datasets. This suggests that fine-tuning on speech may push models to learn task-specific features that don't generalize as well to certain bioacoustics tasks. And interestingly, for non-fine-tuned models, early layer often capture enough general acoustic features to perform adequately. However, for fine-tuned models, layer selection becomes more important and necessary, as different layers may capture more specialized representations that could benefit specific certain tasks. Then finally, we compare both analysis results in this table, and we can see that the best scores are both from AVs and Hubert. They give very comparable performances for IMV at around 64 and for Watkins at around 94%, which shows that Hubert-based representations, since AVs and Hubert are both based on the same architectures, these representations are quite robust for call classification tasks across different species. We also see that the best scores and the second best scores shown here in bold and underline are from the pre-trained category. So fine-tuning pre-trained models on ASR does not consistently bring any advantage over pre-training alone. And such pre-trained representations may already be optimized, and fine-tuning might not always yield significant benefits. If you look at the confusion matrix of the fusion feature representation, we can see that we do have a good general classification alignment. For IMV, we can see that there's one noticeable trend of false positive for class ID 2, most likely due to its high occurrence in the data set and its wide spectral range, which causes an overlap of acoustic features with the other classes. The Watkins dataset, unsurprisingly, is the easiest to classify, likely because of the clear acoustic and spectral differences in the various vocalizations, as well as its high variance in segment lengths. Class 13, which has a blank cell, only had 2 samples, so it results in an empty row. And for Abzaliev, we can see some confusion between the barks in class ID 0 to 5, which may contain some overlapping features. Some classes only had very few samples, such as class ID 6, or were removed during data pre-processing as class ID 7, which results in an empty row. So in conclusion, this paper compared SSL models pre-trained on speech and animal calls for bioacoustics tasks, and we analyzed the impact of pre-training domain and saw that pre-training on bioacoustics data mostly yields comparable performance to pre-training on speech, but can offer limited advantages in select contexts. And we also looked at the impact of fine-tuning these models on ASR, and we saw that this yield inconsistent results, suggesting that general purpose representation learned on during pre-training may already be well suited for bioacoustics tasks. So these results really highlight the utility of pre-trained speech models for bioacoustics tasks even without fine-tuning. Thank you for listening to our talk, and you can find our source code in our given GitHub repository in the QR code. Thank you.